What happens when the one person you've written off as worthless becomes the only one who can save what's most precious to you? On one side, you have a man who seems to have everything. On the other, a man who has lost it all. In just a few moments, their worlds are going to collide, and a homeless veteran is about to teach a rich father a lesson that no amount of money could ever buy. But stick around, because what happens after the rescue is the part of the story that no one saw coming. The day started like any other for Arthur Vance, which is to say, he'd already conquered a small corner of the world before most people, had even brewed their coffee. From his office on the 50th floor, the city sprawled out below him, a map of his own success. He was a master of industry, a man who didn't just live in the world, he acquired it, piece by piece. His morning was a blur of commands barked into a sleek headset. I don't pay you for excuses, Henderson. I pay you for results. Make it happen. Click. He'd pivot to the next crisis. No, reroute the shipment through Singapore. The tariffs are better. I saw this coming 3 months ago. Why didn't you? Click. To Arthur, people were just pieces on a chessboard. Even his own family felt more like appointments he had to squeeze in. A call came through from his ex-wife, her voice tight with frustration. Arthur, it's your weekend with Leo. You promised you'd take him to the park. Arthur pinched the bridge of his nose, his eyes locked on a stock ticker. Cassandra, I'm in the middle of closing a 9-figure deal. Can't the nanny take him? He needs his father, Arthur. He has a new drawing he wants to show you. He's been talking about it all morning. Just give him an hour, please. A heavy sigh. Fine. I'll clear an hour. Have him dropped off. But I can't. Promise I'll be off my phone. It was a concession that felt like a loss. An hour of his time was worth, by his own math, over $200,000. An hour pushing a swing felt like a terrible investment. Miles away, in a different reality, James Miller's day began with the sun. His home was a small alcove behind a stone archway in the city's oldest park. His bed was cardboard, his blanket a worn olive-drab wool that had seen him through colder nights in far worse places. He woke with a quiet groan, his bones aching, with a familiar story. He folded the blanket with military precision, a habit that refused to die. From his coat, he pulled out a laminated photo, the edges soft from years of touch. A woman with a brilliant smile and a little girl on her shoulders. His Sarah, his Mia. The daily wave of grief washed over him. They were the life he had lost, the ghosts he carried with him. He was once Sergeant Miller, a leader of men. He'd served 3 tours, believing he was protecting the very world his family lived in. But while he was gone, a drunk driver had shattered that world. When he came home, there was nothing to come home to. The structure, the purpose, the brotherhood, all gone. He was a ghost in his own life, haunted by the man he used to be. Collecting cans in the park wasn't a choice. It was just a mission. A mission to survive another day. When Arthur arrived at the park, his polished Italian shoes looked ridiculous on the gravel path. His 6-year-old son, Leo, tried to pull him toward the playground. Daddy, look! A slide! Arthur pulled his hand away, his phone already to his ear. Daddy's on a very important call, Leo, he said, his tone impatient. He handed the boy a tablet. Here, go sit on that bench and play your games, and don't get your clothes dirty. Leo's face fell, a look of practiced disappointment. He took the tablet and sat on the bench, the entire vibrant park shrinking to the size of a tiny screen. From his own bench, James watched it all unfold. The boy's disappointment, the father's total distraction. It was a scene he saw every day in 100 different ways. People physically present, but spiritually miles away. Arthur paced back and forth, his voice rising as he carved up a competitor's company. As he turned, his eyes landed on James. He saw the worn clothes and the unkempt beard. He didn't see a man. He saw a nuisance, a piece of blight spoiling his view. His eyes narrowed when he saw James glance in Leo's direction. He ended his call and strode over to James's bench. "What are you looking at?" Arthur's voice was sharp and cold. James looked up, his eyes weary but clear. "Just enjoying the day?" "Enjoy? It's somewhere else," Arthur sneered. "This is a family park. We don't need your kind loitering around." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, and tossed it on the ground near James's feet. "Here, go get a coffee and make yourself scarce." The insult was suffocating. James stared at the bill in the dirt. He'd been shot at, slept in frozen mud, and held dying friends. But this casual dismissal of his entire existence felt like a different kind of wound. He felt the familiar shame that wasn't his, but was forced on him anyway. He said nothing. He didn't pick up the money. He just lowered his head, his mission now to simply be invisible. He let the rich man walk away, his gaze returning to the small boy with the tablet, an old instinct quietly stirring inside him, the need to stand watch. Leo was bored. The game wasn't fun anymore. His dad was just an angry silhouette on the phone. Then he saw it. A little yellow duck waddling near the edge of a wooden pier over the lake. Forgetting he was supposed to stay put, Leo set down the tablet and gave chase. "Here, ducky ducky," he giggled, completely captivated. Arthur, his back to the lake, was delivering the final blow on his call. "I don't care what it takes. Liquidate their assets. I want that deal closed by 5 o'clock. He felt the familiar thrill of victory. He didn't hear his son's squeal of delight. He didn't see him reach a little too far for the duck on the slippery, moss-covered wood. He didn't see the boy's foot slip, his arms windmill, or the splash that was absorbed so quietly by the water. For a terrifying second, Leo's head bobbed to the surface, his mouth open in a silent scream, his eyes wide with shock. He flailed, his small arms slapping uselessly at the water, pulling him under. He couldn't swim. The water was cold and dark, and his father wasn't looking, but someone else was. James had been watching Leo since the father's cruel dismissal. It was a soldier's habit. You scan your environment. You watch over the innocent. The instant the boy's foot slipped, James was already moving. He was on his feet before the splash even settled. There was no hesitation, no thought, just pure coiled instinct. The years of weariness, the ache in his bones, the fog of despair, it all burned away, replaced by the white-hot fire of purpose. He threw off his jacket as he ran. He wasn't a homeless man anymore. He was Sergeant Miller, and there was a life to save. He hit the water in a clean dive, the cold a clarifying jolt. This was a mission. This was what he was trained for. He reached the panicking child in 3 powerful strokes. The boy was going under. James hooked an arm securely around Leo's chest, pulling his head above the water. Leo coughed and sputtered, clinging to him, with a desperate grip. "I've got you, son," James said, his voice unbelievably calm. "You're okay. Just hold on. I've got you." For the first time in years, he was no longer a ghost. He was an anchor. It was the scream of another parent that finally shattered Arthur's bubble. "Oh my God, there's a child in the lake!" Arthur's head snapped up. "What is all the commotion?" His eyes shot to the bench. The tablet was there. Leo was gone. A cold, black dread seized his heart. "Leo!" he called out, his voice trembling. "Leo!" His eyes scanned the park, and then he saw it. The crowd gathering at the water's edge. And in the water, a man, pulling his son, toward the shore. He saw the soaked hair and the small, limp body, and his entire world fell out. From under him, he dropped his phone. It shattered, but he never noticed. He ran, his legs like lead. As he got closer, he recognized the man pulling his son to safety. It was him, the vagrant, the piece of trash he had just dismissed. His mind couldn't compute it. The man he'd just treated as less than human, was, at that very moment, the most important person on the planet. James reached the shore and gently laid the coughing, crying Leo on the grass. His training took over completely. He checked the boy's airway, tilted his head, and put him in the recovery position. He worked with a calm efficiency that was breathtaking. Arthur finally reached them, his face a mask of panic. He shoved James aside. "Leo! Oh my God, Leo, are you all right?" He scooped his son into his arms, clutching him like the only treasure in the world. James stumbled back. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep, bone-aching exhaustion. He was cold, wet, and suddenly, profoundly alone again. He had done his job. The mission was over. He turned to grab his soaked jacket, ready to melt, back into the shadows. He didn't expect thanks. The world didn't thank men like him. Paramedics arrived. Arthur, still frantic, was trying to explain. "My son, he fell in. I was on the phone. Someone pulled him out." He didn't even gesture toward James. But another woman, the one who had first screamed, set the record straight. She pointed a trembling finger at James, who was trying to slip away. "It was him!" she shouted. "That man right there! He saved your son's life. He dove in without a second's thought. You didn't even thank him." Every head turned. The crowd parted, revealing James in his dripping, ragged clothes. He stood there, shivering, but with a strange, unshakable dignity. Arthur looked over, and for the first time, he truly saw him. He saw the exhaustion, the quiet strength, and the utter lack of expectation in his eyes, and the weight of it all came crashing down. His own words, "Make yourself scarce," echoed in his ears. The shock wasn't just that this man had saved his son. The shock was the massive canyon between his own disgusting judgment and this man's quiet heroism. At the hospital, the doctor's words were a comfort and a condemnation. "Your son is going to be perfectly fine. He's a very lucky boy." The doctor paused, looking right at Arthur. The man who pulled him out, his quick action was critical. He knew exactly what to do. He prevented aspiration, maybe even brain damage. Whoever he was, he's a hero. Arthur sat by Leo's bedside, holding his small hand. He had almost lost everything. Not in a market crash, but in a moment of unforgivable negligence. The hero the doctor spoke of was the man he'd treated like dirt. The shame was a physical weight in his chest. Hours later, he left the hospital a changed man. The multi-million-dollar deal, the stock market, the endless calls, it was all just noise. He had a new mission, one that consumed him more than any business deal ever had. He had to find him. He drove straight back to the park. He went to the bench where he'd first seen James. It was empty. The man had saved his son and then just vanished. The next day, Arthur did something he'd never done. He walked the streets of his own city. He started at the park, showing a photo a bystander had sent him. He asked other homeless people, his voice stripped of its authority, replaced by a desperate humility. "Have you seen this man? He's a veteran. His name might be James. He went to shelters he'd only ever known as a tax write-off. For the first time, he saw the faces of his city's invisible population, men and women with haunted eyes just like James's. After a day and a half, he found him huddled in the entryway of the public library. Arthur approached slowly. "Excuse me," he said softly. I'm Leo's father." James looked up, instantly on guard. "Is the boy okay?" It was the first thing he asked. Tears welled in Arthur's eyes. This man, who should have hated him, was only concerned for his son. "He's perfect," Arthur choked out. "Thanks to you." He took a shaky breath. There are no words. The way I treated you, it was disgusting. I was an arrogant, blind fool. You saved my entire world, and I threw $5 on the ground. Instinctively, Arthur reached into his coat and pulled out a thick envelope of cash. "Please," he said, offering it. "Let me help you." James looked at the money, then back at Arthur. He slowly raised a hand, not to take it, but to refuse. "I didn't do it for money," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I did it because it was the right thing to do." Arthur felt a fresh wave of shame. He was still trying to solve the problem with money. "Who are you?" Arthur asked, desperate to understand. James hesitated. Then, for the first time in years, he let someone see past the rags. "My name is James Miller," he said. "I was a sergeant in the Army, 3rd Infantry Division." He pulled out the faded photo of his wife and daughter. "I had a family, a wife, Sarah, a daughter, Mia. They were everything." His voice cracked. "Car. Accident. I was on my 3rd tour. I came home for the funeral and there was nothing left. It's hard to get back on the merry-go-round when your horse has been shot out from under you." Arthur listened, his world reconfiguring itself around. This man's quiet tragedy. This wasn't a vagrant. This was a decorated soldier, a grieving husband and father. A man who had lost everything and still saved a stranger's son. And in that moment, Arthur's true reaction, the one that would ripple through the entire city, was born. This wasn't about a reward. It was about restoration. "Sergeant Miller," Arthur said, his voice now clear and filled with a new resolve. "You saved my family. Now let me help you rebuild yours. And I'm not talking about an envelope of cash. This isn't charity. It is a debt. But it's more than that. It's an opportunity." He leaned in. "I own one of the largest logistics companies in the country. Security is our biggest vulnerability. I need men with your experience, your leadership, your calm under pressure. I'm not offering you a handout, Sergeant. I'm offering you a position, head of security for our primary distribution center." James stared at him, speechless. But Arthur wasn't done. This was the part that truly shocked everyone. "And that's not all," Arthur continued. "I'm officially launching a new foundation, funded by my company. We're going to call it the Miller Foundation." He saw the shock on James's face. "Its sole mission will be to build and run transitional housing and job placement programs for homeless veterans right here in this city. And James, I don't just want you to have a job. I need you to help me run it. Who better to help these men than someone who has walked in their shoes? You saved one life, Sergeant. Together, we can save hundreds." And so began the next chapter. The story of the homeless veteran who saved the rich man's son became a local legend, but the real story was what happened next. Arthur Vance, the ruthless corporate raider, became a fierce advocate for the homeless, pouring millions into the Miller Foundation. We see James Miller, no longer in rags, standing on a construction site. He's not a ghost anymore. He's a commander, again, overseeing the building of the first residence. He's talking with other veterans, a hand on one of their shoulders, brotherhood restored. He has a purpose. We see Arthur at the park with Leo. The phone is gone. He's pushing Leo on a swing. His laughter genuine. He's present. He's a father. Later, they visit James at the newly opened residence. Leo hands James a crayon drawing of a stick figure pulling another out of the water. Above it, in a child's scrawl, it says, "My hero." One heroic act didn't just save a life. It shattered 2 worlds and built a new one from the pieces. It reminded a father what was truly precious, and it gave a soldier a new mission, to finally come home. This story shows us that a person's worth isn't measured by their wallet, but by their character. It teaches us that heroes are often found in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest thing we can do is to simply see the person right in front of us. So, what did you think of Arthur's real reaction? Let us know in the comments. If this story inspired you, please share it to spread this important message. And for more stories that aim to make a difference, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.